Accusations of corruption worse than Watergate. Donald Trump doubling down on Hillary Clinton's emails. I'm Brent Goff, and this is The Day. Tonight, an exclusive report from the heart of America about belonging and being a Muslim.
It's a bit confusing to me when people say Muslims don't belong in the United States, just because Muslims have been in this country since, George Washington's time. And as for me personally, I was born in the United States. This is my home. So when people tell me to go back to where I came from, like, where should I go? Like, this is where I come from.
Also on the show,
Gleis 17 ist für mich.
For me, Track 17 is basically the Berlin train station where all suffering originated.
It was 75 years ago when the first trains of death departed Berlin. Tonight, remembering the thousands of Jews sent to their deaths by the Nazis on Track 17.
And my first love was taken. And all these people cry out, tell our story. That's why I see this as my duty.
Welcome to the program, everyone. There is a train track here in Berlin. 75 years ago, for thousands of Jews, it became their point of departure to death. Remembering the Nazi horrors on Track 17. That's coming up in just a moment. We begin the day with one U.S. presidential candidate putting the other in a class with Richard Nixon. Today, Republican Donald Trump said newly released FBI files make the scandals surrounding Hillary Clinton's emails worse than Watergate. The files suggest an unnamed official at the State Department pressured the FBI to declassify an email that was located on Clinton's private server. The FBI never did that. We don't know the name of that State Department official making the claim, but that does not matter to Donald Trump. It's the appearance of interference which has him doubling down on his rival, Hillary Clinton. Take a listen.
This magnitude's worse, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people in law enforcement. This is worse than Watergate, what's going on with this. And what does she get out of it? She gets to run for the presidency of the United States. Explain that. Explain it. But we're going to put an end to that on November 8th. It is time to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. This is why I'm proposing a package of ethics reforms to make our government honest once again.
All right, that was Donald Trump there speaking earlier. We want to go now to our U.S. correspondent, Enos Pohl. She joins us from the U.S. state of Tennessee. Enos, has there been any statement from Hillary Clinton regarding the FBI files or Trump's accusations?
Brent, no. First of all, as you pointed out, it is all very, very confusing, and we don't really have any decent information what exactly is in the files and who gave them away, and what the takes are from the different campaigns. But Hillary Clinton is silent, and she probably will remain silent until tomorrow evening's debate, and she is preparing hard because it will be crucial. She hasn't won the presidential race yet, and these new information might cause her a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, this promise is to make tomorrow's third and final debate between Trump and Clinton another nail-biter. What are Americans telling you as you travel throughout the country? I mean, what do they expect tomorrow night?
Well, we are traveling the country indeed since a couple of weeks. And on the one hand, we hear really many people who are kind of tired of the same old stuff. We just talked for our next report with a moderate black African-American Republican. He said he's really tired. He might not even watch the debate. This is the one group of people which really matters are the undecided people. And for them, it might be quite important to see how Hillary Clinton will handle this whole new FBI FBI and email scandal.
All right, Ines Pohl, stand by for a moment. Tonight, we want to focus on religion in the U.S. and its place in the race for the White House. Now, religion has long played a central role in how America sees itself. The level of religiosity in the U.S., the highest of any Western country. Only about 1/5 of the population does not consider itself religious. Now, the majority of U.S. citizens describe themselves as Christians. About 51% are Protestant, 24% are Roman Catholic. The next largest denomination in the country, Judaism. It's represented by less than 2% of the population. Buddhism follows, comprising just 0.7%. Islam is practiced by even fewer people in the United States, just 0.6%, as you see right there. Now, it may be a small proportion of the whole, but it still represents almost 2 million Muslims in the United States. And if you've been following the news, you know that Muslims have been a significant element of the U.S. presidential campaign. Remember Donald Trump's feud with the Muslim family of a U.S. Army captain who died in combat in Iraq. Now, the captain's father, Kir Khan, delivered an emotional address at the Democratic National Convention and accused Trump of being unfit to lead the country. In response, Trump implied it was Khan's Muslim faith which prevented Mrs. Khan from speaking alongside her husband. All in all, not a lot of positive stories along the campaign trail this year. All right, let's go back now to our correspondent, Ines Pohl. Ines, you were in Kansas recently, and you met a young Muslim student there. Tell us about that.
Exactly right. We really wanted to know how young Muslims feel in the United States in this really upheated and in many ways really xenophobic race. And we choose Wichita. This is really in the middle of Kansas because Kansas is really a Trump land. Kansas is a very, very conservative state. But in Wichita are living up to 9,000 Muslims. Therefore, we wanted to get to know them and share what we experienced with you now.
It's morning in Middle America, and like thousands of others like her, Jenna is on her way to college. Jenna is still a freshman and she's settling in well. But one thing does worry her. Next year, the state of Kansas will allow students to carry guns at college. As a daughter of Syrian immigrants, Jenna tells us she fears her headscarf could make her a target.
All it takes is one person that has hatred in their heart or has negative intentions, and I don't know how comfortable I would be with everyone being able to carry a deadly weapon so easily.
But guns are a reality here in Wichita, the biggest city in the heartland state of Kansas. This is Trump country. But it's also home to more than 9,000 Muslims. Many of them moved here to work at firms like Boeing and Cessna. Wichita's skyline bears that out. Alongside the factories and churches, a large mosque now also stands proud. Jenna knows what role she wants to play in this community. She wants to be a journalist. She's already making a start as a reporter for her college newspaper, The Sunflower. She and her team spend long hours down here in their basement newsroom. She says American journalism needs perspectives like hers.
As a journalist, when you're going to cover a story, you're always a part of the picture. You know, you're never really truly objective. You're always bringing your background and your history to the story, and that affects the way you look at the people you're talking to, the situation you're observing. And I think it's important to have people of different backgrounds for that reason, because two people can look at the same situation and cover it entirely differently.
Jenna is especially proud of her reporting on a big dispute that broke out over the college chapel. Last year, the student body decided to replace its permanent pews with folding chairs, so Muslims and other religious groups could also use the space for worship. The college had no objections, but a backlash soon followed. Fox News even claimed it was an act of Christian cleansing. Jenna deeply disagrees.
This is a public university. I think it's questionable in the first place to have a chapel at all. on campus since it is a state school. But if we're going to have one, it definitely should be, you know, not aligned with one particular religion. It should definitely be open to everyone.
Now, Islam's place in America is at the center of this year's poisonous presidential campaign. What will the effect be on Jenna and her friends? They've already been the target of harassment in the street. Shouts that they could take off their headscarves and go home.
It's a bit confusing to me when people say Muslims don't belong in the United States, just because Muslims have been in this country since, you know, George Washington's time. And as for me personally, I was born in the United States. This is my home. So when people tell me to go back to where I came from, like, where should I go? Like, this is where I come from.
And Jenna has plans for her life here.
I would like to use my privilege to empower the voices of others and help people, help bridge gaps between people and help build understanding among one another. That's important to me.
As America chooses what direction it wants to take, Jenna knows that she has to fight for her place in it. But she believes in America, the country that she loves, the country that she calls home.
So Jenna just wants to be a very regular young American woman. They are partying, we met them at the pizza place, but there is something, some worry about it, and she knows, and so do her friends wearing a headscarf, that they stick out and that might make them a possible target. Brent?
Yeah, you know, Ines, just after you met with Jenna, police in Kansas arrested 3 men suspected of plotting a bomb attack on an apartment complex housing Muslim immigrants from Somalia. I think we have pictures, the mugshots from the police. There are 3 suspects. They're thought to be members of an extremist anti-immigrant militia called the Crusaders. Ines, your thoughts on this? I mean, this helps to understand the fear that Jenna talked about in your report, doesn't it?
Exactly right, and I mean, I called them immediately when I heard this. It's in Garden City. It's actually just 2 hours away from Wichita, and it might just as well have happened in Wichita itself. So the girls, the young women, and the men actually as well, they were very frightened, and they say, look, some people say, why do you always talk about your fears? It's your own fault because you're wearing a headscarf. But when you hear what these 3 men plan, this would have been a bloodshed. So I think they have all right to be worried and afraid.
Yeah, and you know, the irony of all of this is the United States remains a role model for the rest of the world in religious diversity and integration. I mean, European leaders often lament that their societies have not achieved peaceful integration of religions the way that the United States has.
I'm very glad that you bring this up, Brent, because we also have to see that part of the picture. Yes, we see the hatred, and actually Donald Trump is really steering that. He kind of has opened the lid and allowed all these human beings who are full of hate against Muslims and people who are not white Christians. But on the other hand, there are so many wonderful Americans. They really want to have a United States of America. They were very welcoming to other cultures, and one mustn't forget nearly everyone who is living here now is a former immigrant, and you find a huge diversity here which is also worshipped. So this also is part of this United States.
Yeah, it's a very important part of the discourse indeed. Our correspondent Ines Pohl, outside of Memphis, Tennessee, in the U.S. tonight. Ines, thank you very much.